You are watching SHOUTcraft, your esports gateway drug, with myself, Total Biscuit. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to SHOUTcraft Europe. My name is Total Biscuit. I'm bringing you a match between Must in the blue trunks playing the one and only Zerg versus Jintetsu playing Protoss in the pink/purple. No one really knows. It's a little bit effeminate one way or the other. But hey, that's the Protoss for you. You can tell I'm a Terran player. We're going to get started here on the Kulas Ravine, a rather large map. You can quite clearly see on the minimap to the bottom left of the screen that they are facing each other north to south. And it's going to take a little bit of time for them to find each other. He must, starting off with his Overlord scouting all the way over there. It's going to take him an age to get over there, however. In the meantime, we've got Jintetsu starting off with a pylon at the front, as you might expect. Now, no early spawn pools or any nonsense of that description, so we're not going to be seeing any early rushes from Must at the moment. I would imagine he's going to build a spawning pool on his 14th supply. That's generally the most sensible time to do it if you're going in for a normal run-of-the-mill safe long-haul strategy. In the meantime, we're not seeing anything unusual from Jintetsu either. Now, as to what they're going to do, well, there could be any number of things, to be honest. This is a rather large map. It doesn't really favor anything in particular, as what you can see is that the bases lack high ground. You have a look there. We've got high ground above the bases with a backdoor into each via these destructible rocks here, but there's no high ground for the defender to stand on, so that changes things around considerably. You don't expect to see a particularly turtle-heavy strategy on this kind of map, simply because you don't have the high ground advantage. What you do have is a very narrow choke point there and there. They are very narrow indeed. You can block them very easily. You can hold units there. Particularly, I like this map when I'm playing Terran because I'm able to block off the entrance to my base way faster than usual with simply one barracks and a supply depot. Gateway going up the front there, pylon and a assimilator. Doesn't really give an awful lot of indication as to what he's going to be doing. I would imagine, though, Stalker sentries early on. Seems like a relatively reasonable bet. There's Must spawn pool right now, and we'll be getting 6 Zerglings out relatively soon. Now, neither of the opponents has scouted each other yet, but we're going to be seeing that shortly. Must's going to spot his foe very quickly indeed. Now, Jintetsu's bringing up a second gateway and chrono boosting out a couple of zealots. Now, 2 gateways early on would indicate a zealot-heavy strategy. Since he's not going for a cybernetics core, we aren't going to be seeing stalkers too quickly there, and there's Jintetsu's probe managed to spot Must's base, so they are now aware of where the opponent is. Still no second extractor there for the Zerg player, and a rather early upgrade to Lair. I would imagine that would indicate he's going to go Hydralisks early, or maybe even Mutalisks. Cybernetics core going up at the back there. There's the second gateway, as you can clearly see, and not building anything from there as of yet, simply because he's a little bit resource-starved. Must gonna go and have another look, see what's going on right there. It's always good to follow up your scout with the second scout. Must knows where the base is, but he doesn't want to risk that Overlord being shot down by, say, a Stalker. Now, Jintetsu doesn't have any Stalkers yet, but it's going to be only a matter of time until that happens. In the meantime, a nice little group of Zerglings up there for Must. He wants to hold those back for the moment, and metabolic boost as well, which creates the unit known as Speedlings. Zerglings with little wings on them. Very cute, very dangerous. They move faster than normal Zerglings. Hence the term Speedlings. A couple of sentries coming out there as well. Sentries are a good choice to mix with Zealots, simply because if the Zerg player does in fact go down the route of Zergling Hydralisk, then he's got a unit that can not only drop force fields to isolate the melee unit so they can be picked apart at range, but also he's got that Guardian Shield to reduce incoming damage from Hydralisks. Now, Must is hanging back right now, and it's kind of unfortunate because he's got the numerical unit advantage. He could probably throw himself in there and do some damage. There are a couple of areas he could go past. He could sneak through there. That block is not complete by any stretch of the imagination. Now, you wouldn't expect a Protoss to complete a block. It's rather rare to see it. It's not unheard of. It has been known for Protoss to completely block off their base and then just blow up a pylon to get past it. Now, there's that Hydralisk den that I said was coming, and that's exactly what he's going to be doing. Pumping out the Hydralisks early. Hydralisks are good against an awful lot of things. They are quite thin-skinned. They can be killed relatively easily. They are not heavily armored at all. But in great numbers, they can absolutely hack and slash their way through enemy units. Backed up by Speedlings, of course, to take the brunt of the attack, particularly against Zealots. What you can do is you can keep the Hydralisks behind the Speedlings, throw the Speedlings up against the Zealots, and then take down the Zealots very quickly from range. Double Chrono Beasting there is certainly a Zealot-heavy strategy, and an early upgrade ground weapons. So what you could see here is something called a timing push. It involves timing the upgrade to such an extent that you attack the enemy just as the upgrade completes, which gives you an advantage. Now we're going to get an early engagement right here. Single Speedling going out to have a look, and he's going to harass those forces. Jintetsu turning around and smacking him one, and the Speedlings are now avoiding the force completely, and he's swarming in on the main base. Very nicely played indeed, using his mobility to harass the Protoss base there, having to move away, held off quite nicely by the Zealots. So now he's going to get intercepted by the sentries. Not quick enough, I'm afraid. And off they go. Relatively indecisive there. First blood, of course, going to the Protoss player. Now, we've got Hydralisks backing up the Zerg player now as well. And that's a nice mix. And I would rate it, to be honest, against that Protoss force. And Must seems to be a little bit gun-shy, perhaps waiting for a few more Hydralisks to come out, which is what he's building right there at his lair. Still hasn't expanded, which is quite unusual for a Zerg player, but you can also see spreading his creep out as much as possible so that he is able to get a movement speed advantage. And here we go, early engagement right there, indecisive again versus the Speedlings, backing them off. Now you can see the Protoss player is nicely holding the high ground. He's got a pylon there as well, so he'll be able to warp in additional forces. This is going to put off Must considerably from attacking that position. Of course, on the other hand, he could also just avoid that completely and go to attack the Protoss main base. Doing so, of course, he leaves his base vulnerable to attacks from Jintetsu, and with that pylon, that force could expand rapidly. In the meantime, Must is going to continue to bolster his forces with additional Hydralisks. Still hasn't expanded yet. I would expect to see that quite soon. You don't want to hang on to one base too much. It, of course, will hurt your economy in the long run, especially if you're going for anything more advanced than Hydralisks. Now, if we look at the unit count right now, you can quite clearly see 18 Speedlings and 10 Hydralisks versus 8 Zealots and 5 Sentries. It's relatively even, to be honest, but again, he's holding the high ground there. Both players expanding at almost the same time. Nexus going up there for the Protoss player. Double warp gates still not really pumping anything out, but we've got a robotics facility up now as well. Do we have a robotics bay coming up? Yes, we do, so we can expect to see Colossi there, which is a good match. Colossi will tear through lightly armored units like Hydralisks and Speedlings very fast indeed, so that's a nice choice for the Protoss player. Problem Muster's going to have right now is if he hangs back, he's going to end up being hard countered by those Colossi, and to be honest, he doesn't have an awful lot to deal with that right now. First Colossi coming up for the Protoss player right there, and we haven't got a Thermal Lance upgrade yet, but I would expect to see that relatively soon. The Thermal Lance upgrade is very nice indeed, especially against the Zerg, because of course that allows you to fire earlier before the force of melee units can get into range. Now, the Protoss player has fallen back. He's decided he wants to defend his natural expansion. A couple of photon cannons going up there as well, so that's a reasonable bet. And of course, there's no way that he's getting into the Zerg expansion anytime soon. He's got a couple of spine crawlers coming up there as well. Overseer up from Must as well. I would imagine that's 2 sport observers. And of course, it's nice to have the movement speed advantage. You can pop out Changeling as well. Not all that often that you see that unit, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless. Right, are we going to get an engagement, or are these guys just going to stand waving their willies at each other? That's a good question. Got 1 Colossi up there right now. That's going to help. Are we going to get a second one? Yes, we are. So he's probably going to wait for the second one and then push his way in, which will work. That is a lot of Hydralisks, but bear in mind that the Colossi lasers extremely powerful against lightly armored units. The Thermal Lancers will tear through that blob of units very quickly. Now, what the Zerg player wants to do here is to try and split his units so that the area of effect damage of the Colossi doesn't do so much to him. And then he'll be able to focus fire with his ranged units, bring down the Colossi quite quickly. And these Hydralisks do attack very fast, don't get me wrong, but they are also quite fragile. And it looks like he's going for an engagement, or is he? Or is he just going to simply back off to his expansion right now? Nope. He's going to meet up with the second Colossi there, and they are surely going to move in right now. It's a good force. And he's swarming on the pylon there. Nasty, nasty death. A couple of his Zerglings going down at that point in time, and the Protoss player is not going to let him go at this point in time. He's going to go in, he's going to force himself, and he's going to have to meet up with that. Yeah, there's a couple of spine crawlers right there. He's going to ram himself in there one way or the other. No, actually avoiding the spine crawlers, moving in. And here we go. Zerglings round the back there, swarming on the Zealots. Indecisive once again. Now, it seems to me the Zerg player is going to try and use his mobility to his advantage, but to be honest, with the superior range firepower of the Colossi, I do not think that's going to be all that effective. What he can do, of course, is split up that big blob of forces and move in there. No, the Protoss player is going to move in, and here we go. He's taking out the defenses right now. Got to move him around the rear, and here we go. Charging around the rear. Very nice move there by the Zerg player. Absolutely smashing his way into there. Oh, blocked off. Very unpleasant. Speedlings cut off from their reinforcements. They're going to be ripped apart by the Colossi. And, of course, the Hydralisks can't focus fire in right now. Double Colossi in the back of that expansion, ripping it apart, shredding the mineral line. And finally, those force fields are down. In come the Hydralisks, forcing fire on the Zealots. And yet again, more force fields, forcing them into a choke point where the Colossi can bring down a heavy laser death on their opponents. So that's what he's going to do right there, climbing up the cliff. He's managed to split the force in two, and climbing up there as well. He's going to take the high ground, and Must deciding he's going to go for it, try and evade the Colossi. Colossi engage a couple of Hydralisks, a little bit of casualties from the Zerg, and moving in there against a pretty poorly defended expansion. A couple of photon cannons, and a couple more coming up as well. He wants to turtle his way down there. Colossi coming in from the side, slicing their way through the Hydralisks. That's not good for the Zerg player. He's going to have to back off right now. This is going to be a total loss for the Zerg, and he's going to have taken out very little indeed. Not good at all. Not a good investment in any stretch of the imagination. We look at the units lost. 63 units lost for the Zerg there, and certainly an awful lot of resources down as well. Now, that was a critical death there for Must. He lost his hatchery, lost his mineral line, and if you look right there, barely any minerals and resources available for Must. He's going to have to re-expand once again, and that's really going to hurt his economy. But look at the income right now. Jintetsu streaming ahead, almost double that of the Zerg player. Must decide to switch over to Roaches instead. That's a good idea. They're armored units. They take less damage from the Colossi, and they've got more hit points. So that's a solid plan. The question is Jintetsu going to vary things up? Well, he's just going to turtle the hell out of that expansion right there. And he's going to continue building gateways by the looks of it. A further 3 coming up right there. So it's good stuff, honestly. I am happy to see that happening for the Protoss player. I would rate him at this point in time. So we'll have a look and see what's going on with the Zerg player. What's he going to do? Is he going to diversify at all? We'll go have a look at his base. Is he going to go for a Spire, maybe some aerial units? No, not by the looks of it at all. He's going to go for Roaches at the front to take the brunt, and he's going to take Hydralisks to back them up. A couple of Speedlings there for good measure, just because, hey, they're nice and cheap. They are good for tying up Zealots and stopping them going for your backline. That's a lot of warp gates. To be honest, at this point in time, he's going to push in way more of those Stalkers. The Stalkers are going to be a good counter to the Roaches, and he's going to be able to outnumber them as well. 3 Colossi to slice up the Hydralisks, and the Stalkers to batter down the Roaches. Now, numerical-wise, we're looking at 12 Roaches and 5 Hydralisks, 11 Zerglings versus 9 Stalkers, 3 Colossi, 6 of those Zealots. I don't rate it. That's a big chunk of those gone right now. Speedlings didn't even stand a chance, ramming those Roaches into the rear, and they're getting sliced apart by the Zealots. It's not good at all. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. The Protoss player annihilating the Zerg. I do not rate him at this point at all. I would think that, yep, that's it. GG, ladies and gentlemen. Very nicely played there by the Protoss player. Very impressive. It's really unfortunate that the Zerg player decided to go down the route of Zerglings and Hydralisks. It did not fare him well at all. The Protoss player was able to spot it, and he was able to counter it very effectively indeed. Those Colossi slicing up both, and by the time he switched to Roaches, you could see the Protoss player had so much of a both economic and production speed advantage. He was able to throw out plenty of Stalkers to counter the Roaches, and he managed to jam them into a position that they really did not want to be in. Tearing them apart, and victory goes to the Protoss player. Congratulations to Jintetsu, and thank you to both of our contestants for playing today. You can check out our live shows. The details should be on the screen for you right now. Go check them out, tinyurl.com/SHOUTcraft. Ladies and gentlemen, my name has been Total Biscuit, and this has been another SHOUTcraft production. I will see you next time.